The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Yo, Philly, how yous doing? Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, your host on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Last week, the baseball writers elected New York Yankees shortstop Derek Jeter and Colorado Rockies outfielder Larry Walker to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. They will be inducted this summer along with St. Louis Cardinals' Ted Simmons and former executive director of the Players Association, Marvin Miller, who were elected by the Veterans Committee last year. 3 former Phillies on the ballot did not make the cut, receiving less than 75% minimum required to gain induction. Those former Phils were Curt Schilling, who received 70% of the votes, Scott Rowland, who received 35.3%, Billy Wagner with 31.7%, and please correct me, there are 2 others that I forgot about, former Phillies. Bobby Abreu, a first-timer, who received 5.5%, and Cliff Lee, who received just 2 votes. There is another former Philly star who should be elected this December by the Golden Era Veterans Committee and become a member of the Hall's class of 2021. He was the Phillies' first African-American superstar who played in the red pinstripes for 7 seasons between 1964 and 1969, and again in 1975-76. His name is Dick Allen, and he was a baseball immortal who smashed many tape measure home runs out of old Connie Mack Stadium with his 40-ounce bat. In the process, he became one of the most feared sluggers of baseball's golden era. Here to discuss Allen's candidacy with us is Mark Carfagno, director of Dick Allen Hall of Fame campaign. Welcome to the podcast, Mark. It's great to have you.
Great to be here, Bill. Great to be here.
Mark, you established the Allen Hall of Fame campaign in 2013 to raise public awareness about Dick's career and why he belongs in Cooperstown. You're also one of his closest friends. Tell us why you think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I heard about Dick Allen from my father. Let me tell you this. He told me in 1963 they had this young kid coming up, so I kind of looked out especially for him. And he could do everything. And you mentioned his long home runs. But I watched him throughout his career. And I saw, I'm 66 years old, Bill, so I saw not Ted Williams, I saw Stan Musial play. I saw Willie Mays play. I saw Frank Robinson play. I saw Brooks Robinson play. I saw all of them play. Cepeda, McCovey, Mays, Clemente. And I would put Dick Allen right in there amongst them. So, and then with the stats, he's close. If you look at the conventional stats, but now when they use the new metrics, then to me it's almost a no-brainer, a slam dunk.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Mark. His numbers speak for themselves, and we've gone over this before, but just for the listeners, a career batting average of .292, 351 homers, 1,119 RBI, and a 156 OPS plus, which ranks him 20th of all time, and a 69.9 offensive WAR, ranking him 61st of all time. He was also the 1964 Rookie of the Year and the 1972 American League MVP, and yet the baseball writers never gave him more than 18.9% of the vote during 15 years of eligibility on the writer's ballot. Mark, why was that the case?
Well, I think I have a pretty good idea. He come from a small town. And he was very shy, and he really didn't like crowds. So he gets thrown into this major market of Philadelphia. And there was way more newspapers then. They had the Bulletin, the Inquirer, the Journal. I don't know what else was out there. But a lot of, it's a major city, major market. And they had sports talk radio. It just started. And then he was the first African-American superstar. So, they didn't take a like him too well. And then he got in that incident with Frank Thomas, and the Phillies wouldn't let him tell his story, his side. They told him to keep quiet. If not, he would be fined. So, right there, he couldn't defend himself, on what happened there. And then the media kept pressing. He felt when he did speak to the media, they never got the story straight. And so, and Philadelphia, I think we know was a racist town then in the mid-'60s. So he said, you know what, I'm better off not saying a word. So he didn't say a word. I think they held that against him, and they hold that character clause against him, with I think it's ludicrous, because I know personally, and personally, what a great guy he is, and I have about 40 testimonials from very impactful people saying that he's a good, nice person.
Mm-hmm. Well, now Dick finds himself in the same company as some other very deserving stars who were snubbed by the writers, but were eventually elected by the Veterans Committee. And I'm speaking of players like Ted Simmons of the St. Louis Cardinals, who finally got in this year, Nellie Fox of the Chicago White Sox, Orlando Cepeda of the San Francisco Giants, Phillies legends Richie Ashburn and Jim Bunning. None of those guys ever got in on the writers' ballot. They had to wait many years after their playing career finished. Now, Allen's candidacy was considered by the Golden Era Veterans Committee for the first time in December of 2014. That particular committee considered the candidacies of those who played between 1947 and 1972. Dick needed to secure 12 of the 16 votes cast by the committee to be elected, but he fell one shy, he and Tony Oliva. Hard to believe when that committee consisted of some of Dick's biggest supporters, including Jim Bunning, Fergie Jenkins, and former White Sox executive Roland Heeman. Mark, tell us, what do you think happened there?
Well,
I know Bunning was really upset about...
Yes, he was upset so I was just going to refer to that article that Stan Hochman had wrote right before he passed away. He had that extensive interview with Bunning, and Bunning said really nobody, he was the only one that spoke up for Dick, and he spoke up for a couple other players. He said everybody else was silent. Pat Gillick didn't really say a word. He said he didn't think Pat Gillick thought of himself as a Philly. It's kind of interesting, but that's. And Stan had a couple follow-up questions. He wanted to know how the committee was. Why are there still writers on the committee? On the voting committee. It's 16 voters, 8 members of the 8 Hall of Famers, 4 Major League Executive Hall of Famers, executives, and 4 members of the media, who are now, who I'm told, are going to be called baseball historians. So, in the new process, they're supposed to go over each player individually. That's what I was told. That's what I was told from a couple people in Cooperstown. I sent a few emails out, and I got some good positive responses. But we know that at the last minute, unannounced, that they pulled Bob Watson off the ballot, claiming he called in sick, and they replaced him with Dave Dombrowski. And supposedly David is good friends with Mr. Jerry Reinsdorf, and this is just what we hear. And we hear that Jerry told him that Dick Allen had a checkered career, and he doesn't think that he is worthy for the Hall of Fame. And I find that to be absolutely very unprofessional for a man who's on the Board of Governors, that being Jerry Reinsdorf. He's on the Board of Governors of the Hall of Fame, and he makes comments like that. I don't know. You need advocates in the room, somebody to overpower him, and hopefully next time, we're going to get more people in there. But as we know, a few of them have passed on. Jim Bunning's no longer with us.
Yeah, I want to definitely get to that.
You're going to get on that later on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding of that situation was that Dombrowski was a proxy. He was a proxy for Watson because Watson had a family issue. He couldn't make the vote. Now, a proxy is supposed to vote the way the original voter was going to vote, but apparently he changed gears, and that's the one vote that Dick needed. But all that is, water under the bridge now.
Mm-hmm.
We know that in 2016, the Golden Era Committee was divided into two separate committees. The Modern Baseball Committee, which met in 2017, and that committee considered those candidates who played between 1970 and 1987, and then the Golden Days Committee, which will meet again this December to consider those candidates who played between 1950 and 1969. Now, one thing I've always wondered is, given that Dick's stats were pretty evenly distributed between both eras, why wasn't his candidacy considered in 2017, especially when, Dick had some health problems?
Yeah, I know. I don't understand. I don't know why, but we did receive some correspondence from the Hall of Fame saying that that Dick wore the Phillies uniform more than he wore any other uniform, and what was it, 7 years from? What was it, 6 or 7 years the first time around? He didn't play up until 1969, and they figured if he goes in the Hall of Fame, they want him to go in there as a Philly. But like why wait him? Why we did write in, say a couple other players on his behalf. He has some health issues. He's 77 now, and we were trying to push him to get him on that ballot. I didn't even know that he made more. He was in the All-Star game 4 times post-1970. Prior to 1970, he only made 3 All-Star teams. So,
correct.
He does, like you say, you had the stats that he does. They're almost equal. But, it just doesn't make any sense to me why you would, like you said, why would you make a man wait? Now, first of all, it's unfair what they did in the beginning. In 2014, he missed by 1 vote. So now they're telling him, okay, Dick, your time will come up again in 2017. But then in 2016, they changed the rules. They added more eras. The modern era and the expansion era. So, and the idea is to get the more players in the Hall of Fame. And as a result of that, they pushed Dick back from, 3 more years back. So don't they realize that the people that they're telling this to wait 6 more years instead of 3, they're all in their 70s and 80s. They might not be there in 6 more years. But the Hall of Fame, they have their own agenda. What it is, I don't know. They claim now they want to get more people in with these eras, and we'll wait and see what happens in in December, and probably in a little bit less than less than 11 months away, and I can't wait for it because we're going to come in.
I can't help but think that Dick's situation is very similar to Marvin Miller, who was finally elected by the Veterans Committee this year. Marvin Miller had been considered by Veterans Committees 3 or 4 times, and when he got close in one of the percentages, the composition of the Veterans Committee was changed to favor owners more than the players or the writers, and then his percentages dropped. And it got to the point where Marvin Miller wrote to the Baseball Hall of Fame and said, I don't want to be considered because I'll be gone, the next time. And sure enough, he passed. Now, I certainly have always believed that Dick is very deserving. I certainly believe that whatever sins he committed, sins, quote, end quote, were nowhere near what some people were, and we're talking about people who got in the Hall of Fame with ease. I mean, people who were respected for speaking up and speaking out, people like Reggie Jackson, and today, we're talking about even entertaining on the writer's ballot people like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGuire, people who have all but come right out and admitted that they've used APEDs. We have people in the Hall of Fame who have cheated. They have bet on the game. We know that Ty Cobb, there's a book just coming out about Ty Cobb being involved in a cheating, betting scandal. So Dick, for simply speaking up, speaking his mind in a very turbulent time in our country's history, has long been crucified for this. And, I think we all would say, okay, Dick, well, why don't you come and campaign for yourself, speak up for yourself? But you know what? I'm glad he hasn't, because he is a proud man. I don't think he has to defend himself. I don't think he has to defend his record. The numbers speak for themselves, and he's been in baseball purgatory now since, my God, 1977, when he was first eligible. I certainly hope that all this stuff is taken into consideration in December. Now, Dick's candidacy will be considered this December.
Right.
We're hoping that he's a lock for the class of 2021, but you never know.
Right.
Now, you had already mentioned that many of the people who had served on this last golden era, which is now the Golden Days Committee, probably will not be on it. I mean, we know two of them won't, Jim Bunning and Phil Pepe. They're dead. They passed away. Two people are very old. You have Roland Heeman, who's 91, and Jim Fry, who's 89. I don't know, how they are. Two are not in good health, Rod Carew and Joe Morgan. And two are wild cards. I mean, there is no logic to their voting, and these are writers, Dick Cagle of Kansas City and Tracy Ringlesby. I'd like to think that Bob Watson, if he's going to be on it, Pat Gillick, Don Sutton, Steve Hurt, will vote favorably. I know Fergie Jenkins well if he's on it again. I had him on this podcast, and he spoke highly of Dick and their time together in Philly. Do we know who has replaced at least Bunning and Pepe on that committee, Mark?
No, we don't. That's a voting committee. No, they don't announce that until 1 week prior to the vote. So we really don't have a clue who's on there, unless we do some research, make a couple phone calls. We have people that have some connections. We don't want to give their names out, but Joe Ferry will work on that. He's our PR guy. And he'll be in contact with a couple of people that he knows, a couple of people that I know, and we'll see if we know who's on that Hall of Fame, who's on the voting committee. And I'm hoping that, Joe Morgan will be there. I'm hoping that I don't know why they can't put Willie Mays on there. He speaks highly of him. When one of the greatest players of baseball in the history of baseball says you're a Hall of Famer, how can you ignore that? And he's been saying it for years. And we're also hoping that our, Michael Jack Schmidt will be on that committee. And hopefully, and there's arguably, he is greatest third baseman in the history of the game. And his presence in that room, you have to speak up. Like Jim Bunning said, nobody spoke up. But I think from what I was told, that's the idea of these eras, to get people in. So each guy is going to go be brought up individually. And then what these old-timers or these people like Morgan or Fergie wouldn't know and analytics, these baseball historians in the room, there'll be Steve Hurt, will be Tracy Ringlesby. That's what they're called now, historians, according to, their old president, Jeff Idelson. Now they have a new one, Tim Meade. He would come from the California Angels. He worked 40 years for the Angels, and guess what? He's been pretty cooperative. Sent him a couple emails, and he has corresponded. But also, you had mentioned Ted Simmons before. Now, and Marvin Miller, they're on a modern ballot in 2017, because that runs every 2 years in a 5-year cycle. So it was 17, 19, and then I'll start over again in 2022. But in 2017, Ted Simmons collected 11 votes. Second place with 7 or 8 votes was Marvin Miller. Now you fast forward to December of 2019, guess who gets in the Hall of Fame? Both of them, as you said.
Right.
So they set the precedent right there. They said it. 11 votes, you missed. Now you're going to get in. If you go by a writer's comparison, a BBWA percentage-wise, 11 out of 16 is 68.75. If you would historically, when I've done it, I went through the whole writer's ballot. Anybody that ever got 68.75% of the vote, I would say 99.9% of them eventually get in the Hall of Fame, are in the Hall of Fame right now. So, we got two things on our side, numbers. So if he doesn't get in, you're going to have not only me upset, you're going to have a lot of upset people, because, they really think it's – and them new metrics, I'm telling you, I mean, you look at the stats. I think I told you the story before. I wrote the old owner. I don't know if you want to introduce him, Ruley Carpenter. I don't know if your listeners know who he was, but he was a former owner of the Phillies, and he had called me on the phone, or I had called him on the phone, and I wanted a testimonial from him. I said, I'm trying to get Dick in the Hall of Fame. And he said to me, call me Frog. He said, Frog, you know what? I'm not very well on the computer. I'm not well-versed. I get my secretary to do everything. Do me a favor and send me, his best stats so I know, what to write down in the letter, whatever. So I sent out an email. You were probably part of it because I'm not good with finding these numbers. These stat geeks are incredible. They find these off-the-wall things and they show how great Dick really was. And it's not really cherry picking. It's black and white. That OPS plus and the gray ink and the black ink test, all that stuff. Well, anyway, we got all the stats. I emailed him to Ruley. Now, maybe 2 or 3 days later, he calls me up. I see on my cell phone, his name, Ruley Carpenter, and I expect to say, hey, hello, Ruley. I pick the phone up. I go, hello, and he says, Frog, I didn't know he was that bleeping good. After reading the stats. So now that he didn't send a letter to the overview committee, he says, Frog, I'm going to send it right to Jeff Idelson. And he did that. So,
Dick definitely has his supporters from his time in Philadelphia. You just hope that there are others out there. I know there are some Hall of Famers who are pulling for him. 3 of them have been on this podcast: Mike Schmidt, Goose Gossage, and Fergie Jenkins. You also mentioned Willie Mays. Are there other Hall of Famers who have spoken to about Dick?
Yeah, I spoke to Tony Perez about it. I'd like to see him get on that committee. I got a testimonial from him. But he is really the only one, other than maybe Mike Schmidt. I mean, I don't
McCovey has passed. McCovey was pulling for Dick.
Yeah. Well, Cepeda maybe. McCovey passed away, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe Orlando Cepeda, Jenkins. Players who were around then. Was it Al Kaline? I think he was on the last committee, wasn't he?
I don't think so.
Yes, I think
not
he was.
On.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, I'm trying to think who that voted for.
I didn't see his name there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this will come to pass. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and there's no more excuses. I mean, there's no more excuses.
Yeah, I don't know other than. Go ahead.
And the other thing, and I hate to be nitpicky here, but the people who've played in for the Phillies who have gotten in. Were not long-time Phillies. I mean, during the last decade, Philly fans, have been fortunate to see 3 former players, Jim Thome, Pedro Martinez, and Roy Halladay, elected to the Hall of Fame. But none of them entered as a Philly. Thome's plaque has the logo of the Cleveland Indians. Martinez sports a Boston Red Sox hat, and Halladay has no logo at all on his hat. In fact, the last Hall of Famer to identify as a Philly was Jim Bunning, who was inducted in 1996. And you might be surprised to know that there are only 6 Hall of Famers who identify as Phillies. That is, the caps on their bronze plaque sport a Phillies P. And they are Richie Ashburn, Jim Bunning, Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, Robin Roberts, and Chuck Klein. There are other Hall of Famers who we, as Phillies fans, and even the organization consider Phillies because they played a considerable part of their careers here and put up some big numbers. But they don't identify as Phillies. Instead, their caps have no team logo on them. And they're people like Grover Alexander, Ed Delahanty, and Halladay. Mark, please assure our listeners that Dick's going to be going in to the Hall of Fame with a Phillies P on his hat. Is he?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I told you this story, but I know he's going as a Philly because in 2014, go back to that day, the day before the election, actually the night before, I was in San Diego. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time. And Dick's an early riser. He was in Tampa at the time, and he called me up, and he just started getting all melancholy. He said, I got a call from someone, maybe the PR guy. It might have been Craig Muter back then from the Hall of Fame, and they're saying I may be elected and be ready to come to San Diego in a day or two whenever we can get there. So and then he started getting all sentimental. He was talking about John Ogden, scout that signed him, his agent Clem Capozzoli, about the equipment guy, the old Pete Zera, who took care of him, in Clearwater when he first got off that plane in Tampa, and, it was all restricted, black hair, white hair. Dick wasn't allowed to eat in certain restaurants, and little P.D. Zera, all 5'4" of them, took care of him. And, he talks about the doctor that took care of him, who's still alive, amazingly, old Dixie Walker. And he talks about the old ground crew guys. So everything he talked, and he talked about Bob Carpenter, the father, and he talked about Ruley Carpenter. Not once did he ever mention anything about the White Sox. Not that he don't appreciate what the White Sox is, but he is definitely going in as a Philly. Definitely. Rest assure me on it. You can rest assured.
Mark, tell us about the Hall of Fame campaign. I mean, you're in your 8th year. I believe your 8th year. You've done this almost for a decade.
Crazy.
That is outstanding. I don't know of anybody who has run a campaign that long. How many members do you have at this point?
Hold on, Bill. I'm going to get a sip of water. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, it's truly amazing.
The email list, I would say there's about 100. But
okay.
I would say maybe 15 to 20 do most of the work, hopefully we're going to get a lot of media attention. I think we will. And with Joe Ferry, we'll take care of that. We'll put out another presentation with all his stats, and we'll brush up on them and, put more numbers in there. And we'll try to continue. We've been going around to different, actually you wrote the curriculum to some high schools and going in there and tell them about Dick Allen. Like we said, every high school kid probably in Philadelphia certainly knows what the number 42 means, that being Jackie Robinson. But what they don't know is that they had a similar player right here wearing number 15, that being Dick Allen. And we go in there and we explain everything that he went through and how he persevered and how he became one of the greatest sluggers in Philadelphia Phillies history. And we talk about his power, of course. And we talk about him being an MVP and a Rookie of the Year. And I expect to get – I've already had several radio interviews lined up. And I expect to be I will make more as we get closer, especially around the Hall of Fame time in July, when people talk about it more. And also when spring training starts, I'm going to be on a couple shows here in the Philadelphia area, and hopefully nationally we'll pick up some. Mike Tolan is heavily involved, the Hollywood movie producer, doing a documentary on Dick. He knows, that man knows everybody, and so he has some connections, and through these connections, hopefully a lot of positive comes out of it, and we get to the ultimate prize, and that him being inducted in the Hall of Fame. So.
Yeah, and Mike Tolan's been working on that documentary for quite a while. How far along is he on that project?
Wow, I'll tell you, I bet it's over 10 years. It has to be. But
yes.
I don't know. I think, unfortunately, I think he's waiting for that money shot, for when they announce he's in the Hall of Fame. So we've been pushing maybe for him to, I don't know. We feel that, or a lot of Dick Allen fans, through Facebook and through the internet and through emails, when's that coming out? When's that coming out? Maybe he can just, make a 5 or 8 minute piece and, put it out there, or put the whole documentary out there and just add the end on, but for some reason, I don't know why, but we do have videos made. I have if you go on YouTube and you just Google his name, I know I have 17 that I know of that I have saved as favorites. So you go on there. But the best one it's called Cooperstown Justice by who's the guy? Brian Kenny from the MLB Network. It was done in 2014 December. You watch that 7-minute video.
Yep.
That is the most compelling piece of evidence that he's a Hall of Famer. And and just watch and listen to those who sit on the panel. They are all former players, not Hall of Fame players, but all players on there. And after Brian Kenny gets done reading the stats and showing who he's compared to among the greats, the look in their faces that they're completely awestruck, as was I when I saw it. So,
now
we just move on.
There's been a lot of talk recently about the possibility of the Phillies retiring the numbers of Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, and Chase Utley. But of course, the club appears to have some very stringent criteria for that honor, and the most conspicuous is being elected to the Hall of Fame. Although I should point out they suspended that rule in 1976 when they retired Richie Ashburn's number. Ashburn, of course, didn't get into the Hall of Fame until 1995, 2 decades later, nearly 2 decades later. Do you believe the Phillies will retire Dick's uniform number 15 if he gets in or if he doesn't get in this year?
Yeah, I've been saying for years they should have retired it. Well, ideally, they would have been when Pete Rose had to back out of that on Alumni Weekend. And I don't know if you know Darryl Bell. Darryl Bell is a sports writer for the Philadelphia Tribune. He's the sports editor, I believe, and for 3 consecutive years, and hopefully he'll do it again in 2017, 2018, 2019. He has written 3 columns saying that they should retire his number. And I'm in there quoted a couple times, and they should retire for it's twofold. One, we're saying, okay, we realize, we apologize for what the fans did to you and all that stuff you put through, how you persevere, yet you played at a high level and a Hall of Fame level. And then 2, it's telling the Hall of Fame, look what we did. We have a policy, but we broke it because we think this guy's a Hall of Famer. So, but, I hear people say they don't even know who Dick Allen is, who work for the Phillies. But that's not the point. There's people we know who Dick Allen is. There's people, everybody over 50 knows who Dick Allen is, and then they certainly know who he is in Chicago. But
well, it was some years ago, I think that when Mayor Nutter was in office, that the city of Philadelphia issued an apology for the way the fans treated Dick when he was playing his first time around in Philadelphia, which I thought was a real class move. But not many people even know that or remember that. You want to make the statement that we in Philadelphia believe this man is a Hall of Famer. You're right. You retire his number. You spell it out there so there are no ifs, ands, or buts. And it's very clear in December that he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
So, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
but Mark, I thank you so much for everything that you have done to get Dick that bronze plaque that he so richly deserves. You've done a miraculous job. You deserve all the plaudits. That you can get. I know Dick is very grateful to you, as are all the members of the committee, as are all of his friends. So, let's just finish it off this year. Let's just finish it off.
Yep. I'll be out there in Dallas where the winter meetings are. I guess I have to get my cowboy hat on.
There you go. Give the listeners the name of the website where they could access if they want to learn more about Dick and his career.
It's www.dickallenbelongs.wordpress.com.
Okay.
If you just Google Dick Allen Hall of Fame, it'll come up there.
Great.
And we also have Facebook. Dick Allen belongs in the Hall of Fame. You could join there. There's over probably about 3,000 members there. Just request to join, and I will accept you. That's where a lot of our conversation goes. We get a lot of comments there. And one interesting thing, Bill, before I go, if you let me add, a lot of people say how they can help. And I tell them, you can just write a letter to the Hall of Fame. But after, maybe a couple months, I realized, I said, people just won't follow through. So what I did was said, look, write a comment. And if I like it, I will copy and paste it, and I'll put it on a document. So I have about 40-some pages that I've just done. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting on Thursday night, and we're going to go over all these comments that were posted on Facebook of why Dick Allen should be in the Hall of Fame, and some include stats. And we're going to go over them. We're going to decide which ones are going to be sent to the Hall of Fame. So if you want to go on there and comment, you don't have to write a letter. I tell, the address, 25 Main Street, Cooperstown, New York. Make it to the attention of Tim Mead. You go on the Baseball Hall of Fame website, baseballhall.org. That's pretty simple. But, like I said, if you feel uncomfortable writing a letter, which a lot of people do, you got to go out, get a stamp. Who uses stamps now? So just post it on Facebook, and I will copy and paste of it, and rest assured, it will be sent in there. So, and as part of the package. And I think it's a terrific idea, a terrific concept. It's very easy, and I've got some good stuff, Bill, and I can't wait to send it and review it.
And as long as we're on that note, I know people.
Let me thank them. I want to thank them people. I mean, there's a lot of people, not just me. So I want to thank the people that send all the stuff. There's, it's John Schiffert. I'm sure you know him with stats. And there's Rich D'Ambrosio. These guys are members of SABR. I was never a SABR member of a SABR group, but I know a lot about it now since being involved with this campaign. Dick Rosen. Unfortunately, his wife has some health problems. I got to try to catch up with Dick. I haven't talked to him recently, but he's very instrumental with the statistics. And the crazy thing is, he's from Elwood City, which is a stone's throw away from Wampum,
where Dick is
from. He played
from.
Little League Baseball against him. He played against Dick Allen, and at some of these presentations, he tells about playing against Allen. Incredible. But it's all good. I want to have fun doing this. Like I said, the hard work is over. What more can we research? Like you said, Bill, what we get here's everything you got. We got all the people. We got all the testimonials. We're just going to fill you up with more stuff. It's like overfilling a gas tank. And I'm 66 years old, Bill.
One of the things one of the things I want to do from my end is I have written 2 books on Dick Allen. One is in paperback. That was the first one I wrote in 2004. It's titled September Swoon, Richie Allen, the 64 Phillies and Racial Integration, and it was published by Penn State University, and it covers his early career from really 1964, actually from 1960, after he was drafted by signed by the Phillies through 1969, and it covers a lot of the difficulty that he had, overcoming the racial discrimination in the city. And then the last book I wrote was specifically for the Hall of Fame committee, and it has all the numbers. It's Dick Allen, The Life and Times of a Baseball Immortal. It's an illustrated biography. This thing is loaded and with color pictures. And there is, I think, about 10 pages in the back that is just dedicated to all his stats, the traditional stats as well as the more modern metrics. And they prove that this guy is a Hall of Famer through and through. And I do want to make sure that around Hall of Fame time that this book, at least this book, will be in Barnes & Noble stores. But you could get either one of them online right now at the first one at Penn State University Press, and the other one would be Schiffer Books, Schiffer Publishing, which is out in at Glen, Pennsylvania. So look for those 2 the nearer we get to Hall of Fame weekend. Mark, thanks for being with us, and thanks again for all your efforts, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another podcast of Philadelphia Baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, rounding third and heading home on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.